Greetings, this is Mr. Nobody with another in the series of the MAGA Republican. And this one I want to talk a little bit about protests. Well, 2020 was dominated with a lot of peaceful protests. Yeah, peaceful. They would even have scenes where you see this reporter talking about how, see, they're all just peacefully protesting, and behind them there's explosions, there's fires, there's glass being broken, cars being turned over, people getting hurt, and shouting screams of agony and another miscellaneous screams and all this kind of stuff. And it's all just a peaceful protest. And they were saying that all through 2020. It's all just peaceful protest. It's all freedom of speech. Well, when you have to put a brick through a policeman's face, freedom of speech is ended. You're not talking anymore. You're smashing. And freedom of speech does not extend to smashing. You want to stand in the street or sidewalk, not blocking traffic, and shouting your slogans and holding up a sign. That's a peaceful protest. You want to march with a bunch of you somewhere. Maybe you close down the street, having cleared a street to be closed for a brief period of time, like for a parade. Organized basically like a parade. And you would have musical instruments and blah blah blah, and megaphones, and shout out your slogans and your complaints. All of these things can come under the heading of free speech. That's a real protest. That's the 1960s protest. And one more interesting thing. You're not just standing there shouting slogans and holding a sign. You're also somebody who can intelligently discuss. What are we protesting? What is our beef? Why are we, instead of sitting at home having fun or going off and playing golf somewhere, why are we out here, doing this boring activity? It's because we got something to complain about. And you have to understand all that. At any time, a reporter could call or any one of you and say, what are you here? Why are you here? What are you protesting? And that protester, no matter who you grab, is going to have an intelligent thing. Well, we are protesting the fact that this certain thing takes place. I have this particular instance I saw with my own eyes, that blah, blah, blah. And I heard from other people that have seen the same thing. And this is very wrong. Can't you see that this is wrong? Yeah. And this is hurting people's lives. And, by this and by that. You have a whole thing, In fact, if you really want to impress somebody, they could say, well, what do you suggest we do about it? And you actually have some kind of an intelligent, reasonable, practical suggestion. We need a law. We need better enforcement. We need to comb through corrupt organizations and get those who are corrupt removed. Whatever. You got something. You got specific things you can even ask for. There are things that need to happen. There's things that are problems. They need to be fixed. Here are things that we are asking for. Now, that's a protest. But instead, you're just protesting that there's government, carrying around a sign that says no justice and no peace. Yeah, you've made that goal clear. You blew up a courthouse. So that you'll make sure that there will be neither peace nor justice. Is that a cause? Is that a valid cause? And you want to stand in the street and hold a sign, that's one thing. But when you carry out the content of that sign by, killing police officers who are just trying to, keep things under control, police, and courthouses that, would have seen to it that justice is being administered carefully and in accordance with the law. That's how justice is supposed to be done. You see? But they don't want that. No, they don't want justice. They don't want there to be justice. They want injustice. Injustice for all. They might as well set it on the sign. Injustice for all. You see, there were no interviews of protesters. How do you interview somebody who's hurling bombs and stealing merchandise and even cash registers full of money out of shops and so forth? How do you interview somebody like that, running out with a cash register under this arm and a whole bunch of merchandise under that, and he's running out the store through the window he crashed through? And so what are you protesting? you're not going to get an intelligible answer. What? I'm protesting that they didn't hand all this stuff over to me for free, even though I've done nothing for them. Those were not protests. Those were riots, and gradually we've come to accept the word riot. Now, just as an interesting point of irony, they make this big deal about, oh, it's a riot, or even they use the word insurrection on the big January 6th. I don't approve of that entry for reasons I'll get to that are probably not the usual ones for most people. I don't approve of that at all. But it was extremely, supremely peaceful. It really was. That's probably about as close to a peaceful protest as could be seen. Yet they didn't hesitate to call that one a riot, even though if all those other things that happened across the whole country throughout all of 2020 had been like that, they would have probably been able to sell. These are just peaceful demonstrations, peaceful protests, So there's a little unfairness going on here. There's a lot more to that, but I'm going to cover that, in a sub-series in a while, because that's a lot to bite off, and I have to do it in sections because it's just huge. But let's get back to the immediate area of protests. So, is protesting a good thing? I think it can be. It's one of the reasons we have the free speech. And that's, we may not know what's going on, or realize that something that looks reasonable might actually be impacting people in ways we wouldn't expect. So, I think of a lot of stuff that's gone on. Historically, there were issues where people of, say, particular races have been mistreated. And just they had to deal with things like red lines and being told, it doesn't make that much difference what part of the bus you're in or what part of the movie theater. It's a little bit unfair that, you're this color, you have to be here. That's wrong, but those are minor things. When whole stores you need to go into can't even be entered. Even stores that might have, shops and restaurants that might have, open, say restrooms open to the public, as many did, and many even now still do, but not all the public. And all of a sudden, you got to figure out where you're going to go, and you may have to walk blocks and blocks away. And hey brother, do you know some place I can go take care of a business? And the guy says, oh yeah. There's a little hole place, 3 blocks down and 2 over, where if you sneak in the back way and you ask very, very, very nicely, they might let you in, and it'll be a dump, but at least you can, take care of business. Where the white guy just says, oh, I'll just go into this restaurant, and even if I don't go in and sit down and buy food, if I just use their restroom, they're okay with that. And all this kind of stuff. There's some books I've read about that. And these things are worth protest. There was redlining. You could live in certain neighborhoods, or subtler forms where you could, but there'd be these insurance costs that would be adjusted, not just because a town is, safe or not safe. That might be at least an understandable concern, let's just say, but simply because, well, this is the black neighborhood, so we're going to charge for mint or basic insurance. This is the white neighborhood, we'll just make a great token charge. Not because one is safer than the other, but because, it's very subtle. And many, society at large may not even be aware of these things. So now for people to get out in the street and say, look, this stuff is happening. What is happening? You walk out in the street and you carry a sign saying redlining has got to go. You're not hitting people over the head with it. You're not blocking traffic. You're not interfering with what's going on, but you are making your voice heard. Free speech, absolutely. This is exactly what protest is for. And by the way, if they interview you, you can explain what they are, how evil that is, and how that needs to be done away with. And, to the point where he went, yeah, right. Yeah, I had no idea. And that's it. A lot of times it's not that people don't care; it's that they don't have any idea, because we have a media that tells us what to look at and what not. People were slaves in some part of the world. We don't hear about that. They were still buying and selling slaves in, say, Sudan and parts like that of the world. But you won't see that in our media. All you see is the latest Paris fashions, or some review of the latest movies coming out. You know, Everything all just to distract you from what's really going on in the world. So protests are great for calling attention, but they're also very limited, and we need to recognize that fact. Yes, a good, intelligent, rational protester should be able to have some practical suggestions. But even more than that, you have to want the suggestions. You have to want to do something. You have to take practical steps towards realizing, a repair of the concerns. And in that sense, protesting is very much inadequate. It was the canary in the cave that warned you of the smoke, the dangerous gases, but all it did was sit there and die. You still need to take that knowledge and do something with it. The canary dies. Let's get the hell out of the mines till they can be cleared out of whatever dangerous chemicals are in the air. So it's not as much, but this is what I had to say about protest. Thanks for listening.